For this week, it is Loom-knit leg warmers. I actually had the opportunity to film this outside, and I'm going to do that as much as I can because it's just so relaxing to do it and it gives you a new viewpoint, so it'll work a lot better, especially since I'm most comfortable in my lap when it comes to projects. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure that you leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. As far as normal supplies go, you will need a 24 peg round loom in any gauge as long as it's equivalent to the yarn you're using, and a looming hook. Now, since my legs are really thin, if you have larger legs, you might need to go a size up. So if you have a kit, this is no problem. You can just up the size. Now you will also need a bulky weight yarn. I am using Woolly's Thick and Quick. It's one of my favorite yarn brands if you don't know that already, and it's a number 6 bulky. It doesn't matter what kind you use, just use a 6 or a 5. Then you will need your normal traditional yarn tools such as a crochet hook, which I'd highly recommend, but it is optional. Then you will need scissors, a clothing measuring tape, which is a must, and finally a yarn needle, which is also a must. And that's all of your supplies. Let's get started. I'm actually really impressed with myself for this trick, but grab your 24 peg loom, looming hook, and finally your ball of yarn, and take off that wrapping, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to get started with the cast on. For those of you who constantly watch my videos and are very loyal and dedicated, thank you, but for the new beginner, I'm going to walk you through this particular kind of cast on. I think I've shown it before, I'm sure I have. We're going to start by making a slip knot and attaching it to the anchor peg. Most looms should have this. If they don't, just attach it to the first peg. It doesn't really matter. And then you're going to E-wrap the first row. E-wrapping is wrapping your yarn back to front around each peg until you get to the last one, which marks your first row technically. Then, for the second row, you are just going to branch over to the first peg and lay your yarn flatly across the loom in a U-wrap stitch. Keep U-wrap knitting across your E-wrap row all the way around the loom for these 24 pegs or more, depending on the loom you're using, and meet me back here when you're finished. Okay, so for the cuff of these leg warmers, we will be purling. Now, I know how much most people don't like purling, but it works for this project. So, you're going to go down into that first stitch and grab that purl from the ocean and pull it back up to create a new loop. Don't pull it all the way through. And then you're going to pop the old loop off of the peg and put the new loop back on the peg and tighten it. Then you're going to go into the next peg the same exact way and just grab that stitch out. Sometimes your yarn will get caught, so just make sure it doesn't snag too much and go back in, and then you're going to lift that old loop and then tighten it back on. You're going to continue this for a total of about 2 inches, and I think it looks really nice, so just go with that. The purl creates a bumpy stitch, so it's going to make a big indentation once you start doing a different stitch, which is the second part of this project, but purling for 2 inches isn't so bad, so just keep going with it if you want to, and you can always replace this with a different stitch, although personally I feel the purl makes this project look really nice. So, purl for 2 inches, make sure you use your handy dandy measuring tape, and meet me back here when you're finished. Don't forget to remove your anchor peg yarn as well. Just pull it through and then tuck it into the loom and continue on. Okay, so here I have my purl row and it's all done, 2 inches. You can do more if you want a larger brim, or you can do less if you want a smaller one. It's pretty flexible in this pattern. Now we're going to start E-wrapping. E-wrapping is the easiest stitch possible, and I simply think it is so much faster than most stitches on the loom. Now you're going to E-wrap back to front. So you just basically go round and round on each peg and then move to the next one. Then when you get to the last peg on your loom that has been wrapped, work backwards and lift the bottom loop over the top of peg 24 and then all the other pegs behind it. Now I just kept E-wrapping and eyeballed it the way I wanted it to. These leg warmers don't have to be super long because then they get in the way. And I actually forgot what my exact measurement is, but I'm pretty sure my video footage will tell me because I did measure it. So use your measuring tape, and if you want to eyeball it, that's fine. Just make sure you make an exact measurement at the end of the project though, so that you can make the other leg warmer exactly the same. Here is my E-wrap stitch set here. This is the part that I was telling you about where I figured out how I measured it, and it looks like it was about 4.5 inches, just barely. So you can do exactly what I did, or you can make your leg warmer longer or even shorter than what I did. It doesn't really matter. That's the nice thing about flexible projects. But now it's time to bind off. So I used a bind off technique from loomahat.com here on YouTube. Her name is Denise. Super awesome lady who just does some cool stuff with looms and very talented. So I take a lot of my bind offs and stitch combinations from her channel, so link is in the description below. So for this part of the cast off, I used a super stretchy bind off. Basically what you're going to do is you will wrap your yarn all the way around the loom in maybe 1.5, so you're just going to go halfway across after you're done wrapping the entire thing, and then you will cut your yarn with your scissors because it's time to cast off. But I'm doing a super stretchy cast off, which is supposed to make the project stretchier so it fits over your foot, although I'm not sure if I did it right. If you really want to be sure, just go down in the description, but I believe I did it right because it was stretchy. Okay, so first things first, you are going to ignore the first peg and move to the second peg. And then you're going to act as if you're purling it, but instead of holding that loop and replacing it, you're going to pull it all the way through with your yarn as if you're weaving it in. But now you're going to turn around and go back to that ignored peg where it has 2 loops on it. You can see it. So then, if you're doing it right, you're going to go backwards with your working yarn and pretend you're going to U-wrap it. Instead of U-wrapping, you're going up and doing the purl stitch backwards. So you're going up through those 2, then you're going to pull, and then just pull the entire working yarn through those 2 loops. Then ignore the second peg and go to the third peg and repeat the same thing. So act as if to purl, then pull that working yarn up and through completely instead of holding the loop and replacing it. Then you're going to go to the ignored second peg, act as if you're going to U-wrap, but you're actually going up through those 2 loops and then pulling that working yarn through as if to do a purl. I think this is called a purl under, by the way, so it's a new stitch. But anyway, then you're going to go to the 4th peg, ignore the 3rd peg, take that working yarn all the way through, go backwards, go up through those 2 loops, and then as you go, start popping off loops. And this was recommended by Denise because it helps with the tension. So as you go, just pop off some of the loops behind you and then continue on. So you're basically skipping a peg, ignoring it, and then you're going to purl, but really you're just pulling your yarn through, and then you're going to go backwards and so forth. So you can keep watching this over and over again. That's how I did it, is I rewind it a lot. I'm trying to repeat it a little bit so that you don't have to do that, but as you can see, you are just going to start popping off loops here and there. It's pretty simple. Just make sure you don't pop off the loops that you're working with. Leave a little bit of a fleet of loops behind you and then pop them off as you go because they are now secure. Okay, so while I was outside, I caught this video of a hummingbird and I slowed it down as much as I possibly could, and its wings are still beating so fast. But I think it's so cool. I know it's irrelevant, but I was outside knitting when I filmed this, and it's just so cool that its wings are just like flapping normally, but they're flapping so fast. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, so if this happens to you, don't worry, but I ended up not having enough yarn, so halfway is actually probably not a good idea. So if you run into this problem, all you can do is just tie on another part of your yarn. So once you're on your last 3, you're just going to do everything normally. Go to your last peg, which is on the first, and then you're gonna go backwards onto that second peg, lift off that one, and then go back and lift off both of the last 2 loops. Looks confusing, but you'll get it. And then you're going to pull the project up through the loom. Just take out your scissors, your crochet hook, yarn needle. I actually used my crochet hook solely for this video because it's just so much easier instead of having to tie something on. Meet me back here when you have finished weaving in everything. If you want to see more detail when it comes to weaving in, please check out my other videos. They'll be linked in the description below, and you can just fast forward through them to look at my weaving in process. But it's pretty simple. You just have to hide the yarn inside out of your project. Thank you so much for watching this video, and this was actually super fun and relaxing to film. I am sorry it was released a little on the late side today. That's just because school has started for me and I'm trying to find a good way to juggle my videos and my school at the same time. But these fit so comfortably. If you're going back to school, they're really stylish. They've kept me warm, they've kept me comfortable, they're awesome. So try them on, make another one following the same exact instructions from this video. I'll have it on here for whenever you need it. Let me know if you actually did this project. I'd be really interested and want to know if you were successful. I'll see you next Friday, everybody, and I do have some extra surprises coming out soon, so I hope that you stay subscribed and tell your friends and family. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye!